Hello and welcome to my Friday chess stream here on lichess.org and Twitch. I am International Master William Paschall from the United States, but living in Budapest, Hungary since 2004. Son of Anarchy 84. Popular here in the last few days to name yourself after television shows. Son of Anarchy. Good to see you, whoever you are in reality. We have Friday, nothing special today, the usual blitz and classical chess. And we're playing games with viewers between like 5 and 8 minutes with a small increment, basically like 5 seconds or 3 seconds per move, depending on if it's 5 or longer for the initial time. If it's a longer initial time, like 8 minutes or even 7 minutes, it's best to make it like 3-second increments. If you want to challenge me to faster, like 5 minutes or 6 minutes, you can make the longer increment like 5 seconds per game, per move. Per game, per move. Good morning, everybody. It's Friday. Son of Anarchy's here first. Son of Anarchy. I wonder who you are. Do I know who you are? I have my theories. Anyway, we're not going to force everyone to reveal their identities necessarily, although I prefer us to stick with one account. I like there was this guy who came on like a few weeks ago. He was like bragging, yeah, I beat you with like 4 different accounts or something. Like, well, that's really something to be proud of. M477OC, Lonely Master, Theoretical Battle. Lonely Master, he says in his notes he's 2300 from Brazil. Really appreciate a good player like that coming to the stream. Must be pretty late for him in Brazil. Theoretical Battle is also a new account. We've gotten to play them quite a few games already. Geese, one of our regulars, WGM Alexandra, and Son of Anarchy, I think, was challenging me like first. Were you? Or Son of Anarchy, were you challenging me first? Were you like challenging me first and then lost your place in the line? Is it my imagination? I'm a little bit groggy yet. Because if you were at the top of the list and then dropped down, I'd like to correct that. Because there's a big difference between being first and sixth. Anyway, is it my imagination or did you lose your place in line? Anyway, guys, gonna get started. Just blitz and classical today. Sunday I have a simul to remind everybody on lichess, basically 6 p.m. or 1800 hours military time. You guys say that? Yeah, I don't know if that's international or just the United States. We call it like military time. 1800 hours. When you use the 24-hour clock, basically. 1800 hours. Sunday, Central Eastern summertime. Central European summertime. VSim, welcome, man. Or woman. You got the icon there of the girl waving. I guess it's time to get started. I was just hoping Anarchy would answer, but no, I don't. I don't know if that means no, I didn't get. Anyway, well, I'm going to take M47 first and see if anyone screams and cries, and then we'll know like if we did something wrong. M47, I just call him that. He could also be interpreted as Malotz. Has played us pretty tough. Yesterday it was classical Nimzo, which I looked at, and I like to look over the games. By the way, guys, if you have questions about a game you played me like the day before, or maybe a few days before, you can always reference it. You know, if you join the stream on another day, I probably remember the game. I do try to go over them. Yesterday, this opponent played the white side of a Taimanov classical Nimzo against me and played an interesting move where he like played bishop g5 and induced me to play h6 and went back to d2. And when I looked at that, that's actually an idea that some strong players have used. So that's pretty interesting. I can learn something every day. I'm going to play b6 here. Kind of an aggressive way To play against the English, I don't recommend personally playing the Owen defense, like d4 or e4, b6, because I think that black just doesn't really get enough pressure on the center, and it feels like it's a kind of passive opening. So I know there's some good players like the French Grandmaster Christian Bauer and others. So Sun Anarchy said he wasn't first. Okay, it was just that his challenge popped up on my screen. I guess I noticed it. So knight c3. So the Owens defense, I think, not as effective as the so-called English defense, because white is playing c4, and it's harder for him to play e4, d4, and c4, all those pawn moves, and really maintain the center as effectively as if you just played like d4 and e4. So that's my philosophy. That the English defense is much more playable than the Owens defense, where really I think white has a serious kind of spatial advantage that's very hard to combat. Although even that's sort of playable for black again. There's some good players have played it. So d4, and here we could play other moves. You could play maybe knight f6, but I'm not sure what's up with that. I have noticed that played, the knight f6, queen c2, or knight f6, f3. I don't know what this is called. Maybe somebody else knows. Once I did it by accident when I was like 1200. I'll never forget that I tried to play the Queen's Indian against knight c3 when I was just learning. I was unrated actually. Before I had a rating, maybe my first tournament ever, I tried to play like d4, knight f6, c4, b6, because I thought I was playing the Queen's Indian, but it was actually knight c3, not knight f3. So I learned quickly that it's not the Queen's Indian when white puts the knight on c3, and I have noticed that some players do play that though, and there is some interesting traps and stuff. There was a game where like Loek van Wely lost against a weaker player a few years ago, I remember. I think he played, maybe Loek van Wely, like right before he wasn't allowed to go back to the United States anymore. We were joking about that in Prague last year. He not overstayed his visa. Basically what happened was he said he had come to work at a chess camp, and then they said, oh, you can't come back because you didn't report that you were coming to work there, or something like that. So basically Van Wely was punished for being too honest with the American immigration authorities, and now he's not allowed to go back for 5 years or something. This was a while ago. But anyway, poor guy, he was victimized by that oddball Queen's Indian formation. I don't remember the guy. Who is it? Some young American IM beat him with like d4, knight f6, c4, b6, knight c3, bishop b7, queen c2, d5. It's a very weird line, and I guess just playable somehow for black. Kind of weird Queen's Indian English defense, sort of relative. Does it have a name? Does anybody know if that opening has a name? By the way, Saronche will be late today, my primary moderator. Kyria Kospes, welcome to the stream. So, Malotz, or M47, as he's otherwise known, is playing into one of the main lines of the English defense here. The other day I had somebody play queen c2 in this position, and I had trouble over the board remembering the theory. But now I checked it, and I decided to play knight e7 because I couldn't remember the theory very well there. But it turns out that queen c2, queen h4, bishop d3, f5, and white plays like knight f3 there, I want to say, is a very interesting variation that I myself played with white and black many years ago. But this bishop d3, Here we are, the actual position. This bishop d3 is more common, though, not necessarily better than queen c2. Queen h5 check, and that's a move. I actually think I lost to Attila Sebe with this years ago. Queen h5 check. I lost a miniature to the tricky grandmaster from our hometown of Budapest, Hungary, Attila Sebe. When I'm not losing to him like with 15 minutes against 2, I'm losing to him. No, the only time I lost to Attila was in this line. I think I played this with white. Basically, it's probably better to play. Well, I mean, the main line is I guess there after f5. Pawn takes pawn. No, f3. Sorry, f3. f3. Is that right? Am I losing my mind? f3. No, f3. Knight h6. Yeah, that's the line. The last time I played that was maybe 10 years ago against Yuri Lapshin. Queen e2, though, this line I thought was not so great for white for some reason. I guess knight c6. Thinking Sebe played knight c6 against me. But this, we're talking about a game that I played basically, man, it must have been an IM tournament where Sebe wasn't a GM yet or something like that in 1997 or 1998. Maybe 1997 I lost to Attila Sebe in this position with white almost 20 years ago. I vaguely recall, I think he played, I'm thinking he played knight c6 here and had some kind of weird traps going on. But over the board now, knight c6, yeah, knight c6, pawn take, or knight f3, pawn takes pawn, bishop takes pawn. But this is pretty complicated. I know that it's good for black, but I don't remember. Wasn't the right wording. Anyway, we've got the position that I think is good for black, but oh man, the theory, pawn takes pawn, bishop takes pawn, knight c6 should be one possibility, although it looks weird somehow. To play knight c6 right away, I mean, I think I remember this being the move. God, I'll have to call Attila. Maybe I'll see him tonight because he actually plays poker as well. And sometimes he comes to this poker game I play on Friday nights. He's really the only other good chess player I know who plays poker in the same game with me. He doesn't go very often, though. Actually, my chess team, speaking of poker, my new chess team, where I'm not sure I'm even going to play or not, has merged with another team, and I'm actually like team members with Tibor Tolnai Tibor, who he is a very, very strong poker player. He is actually was a European champion in Omaha back in the 90s, like before it was, in the late 90s, before poker was even that popular. An old school poker pro. But I don't know, he's not playing much chess anymore. Knight f3, knight f3, pawn takes pawn kind of feels like the only really legit move here. Knight f6 would allow like e5. I mean, I think I have to take here. And now it just seems like something like Attila had a trick in this variation. It's a very tricky opening, the English defense, and a lot of the theory kind of, it just sort of depends on some tactical tricks, and it's difficult to play it without these tactical tricks kind of memorized, fresh in your mind. I haven't been playing this opening a lot lately, so a lot of these old tactical motifs I kind of forgot. But honestly, I'm not sure I ever played a tournament game. I doubt I ever played a tournament game in this variation with black, where white played like queen h5 check. I just had a bad experience with white and lost that game in like, I don't know, 25 moves. The only time I ever lost to Sebe Attila. Again, it was 19 years ago, so I can be forgiven for forgetting the moves, but the variation, I believe, you know, is supposed to be good for black, but I'm not really sure what happens after knight f6. Bishop takes e4, knight f6, bishop g5, for example. But the weird thing about it is that I just think that there was some kind of surprising tactical idea in the position. And I'm just not seeing anything like that, you know. Attila just shocked me with some kind of tactical trick, and I don't really see it happening here. Like, what could it be? I mean, knight takes d4 doesn't work. Knight takes d4 and like queen h4. What could it be? Queen f6. How could I have lost so quickly to Sebe in this position? It's very weird. I'm not really sure. Because like knight f6, bishop g5 looks kind of good for white. Maybe I made a mistake already, not remembering the theory. Alright, I mean, I don't really see another move here. We've played just 9 moves and we're running out of time. But that's what I get for playing a sharp opening without remembering the theory. Maybe there's been some revision in the, I don't know, theoretical status of this line. I could play bishop e7 if I have to, but it looks like it's kind of like a fail. I would kind of classify it as an opening fail. H6 doesn't work. Castles. Can we do castles and allow d5? That's a big question. I'm gonna run out of time soon. This doesn't feel right to me. I must have made a mistake like on move 7 or 8 because it feels like this is just good for white. White has the advantage. Bishop e7. Worst comes to worst, I have to do that move, but it's not really what you want here. I don't know what to do. I mean, this just feels wrong. Feels wrong for black. And maybe I'm like almost lost here. White played very thematically. I just didn't see a move. Castles, d5. I guess I should have castled. This is kind of passive. This is too passive. I should castle and allow the pin to remain there, and if d5, I guess I play something like knight a5 and just play the position. So this retreating move, clearly wrong, but I panicked because I don't remember the theory. Yeah, this is not really good. I'm not sure I'm lost, but it's definitely better for white. Welcome everybody to the stream. Tough game here to start things off. Now he played quietly with bishop e1, bishop b1, and I think that's kind of a lucky thing for me because I mean still I'm in a worse position, but I castled, and he's got kingside attacking chances, but I'm still alive, and that's the important thing, I guess, that I'm alive. And there were some chances I wouldn't be even alive right now. So we've got to play maybe to get some sort of activity here. Knight h5. He might have d5 at some point, but we'll have to just live with some structural problem or other to try to trade pieces, perhaps. I thought that bishop e1 was not critical. Probably white has bishop h6 or d5, some more aggressive move there. He can try to just keep the position, but I think kind of was best served by doing something immediate and kind of trying to keep control of everything is what he's up to here. But now knight f4 doesn't seem to work, so we're gonna have to move quickly. Very, very bad time problem. A little bit of counterplay. I thought about sacking the exchange on f3, but I just don't see what it does. He could just take with the queen, and I can't take on d4 because of my bishop unprotected on b7. So it's a nice idea to sack the exchange, and I don't see what it does. Knight f4 also was very aggressive, but if he plays some quiet move like queen e3, my piece is hanging on f4. So I'm like, I can't play queen f8 or support it. And now knight e5 is complicated because I have knight takes pawn, but I'm not sure about that. So I'm just going to bail here and play kind of quietly. A draw is okay with me because I'm about to lose on time and I was slightly worse. So if he doesn't want to play for a win, maybe I'm okay. Maybe I should try to play for a win now in this moment. But I have just 6 seconds left, and objectively white should be okay here. So maybe I have the initiative on this last move with bishop g5 is probably, you know, a mistake. But now it's like with 6 seconds left, it's just a mouse game. So white was clearly better. I made a mistake in the opening. I'm lucky I didn't lose. Thanks for the game. Lonely Master, that'll force us to at least, you know, go back and review the variation and understand what I did wrong. Slightly curious what your opinion is on theory, the development of theory as opposed to 960. Or some chess fully relying on calculating ability. Well, you're talking about theory as it, you know, as pertains to openings. I'm assuming, though you could be talking about more broad sense of chess theory. Sparkle Horse versus Lonely Master. All right, let's play e4. Welcome to the stream, Lonely Master. Good to have a FIDE rated opponent, Master Strength. And e4 is the move of choice lately. Won't always be my move of choice, but working on playing e4. So, Cocaine Salesman, yeah, what is my opinion on theory and development of theory? Well, my theory is not up to date, but as I say in my chess coach profile here on lichess, I'm not an opening specialist. I like opening, studying the openings, and as much as anybody, you know, and I have certain openings I play and I prefer and have fun studying, but I've never been, I want to confess something, you guys. The other day I was thinking about, like, if white could play bishop f4 in this position. It's just a totally random, like, concept, but just out of curiosity, something to think about. Probably not, but just here's a chess quiz for you guys. How quickly can you find, like, the refutation of bishop f4. Kind of a good exercise in chess analysis. So anyway, cocaine salesman. I'm interested in opening theory, but I'm not a specialist. People are normally kind of opening specialists or not, and I'm not. But I'm interested in theory. I'm interested in the development of chess theory. I've talked numerous times here about the book that I am very heavily influenced by, which is Modern Chess Opening Theory by Swootin. It's an old book from like the early 80s, but it sorts things out and it talks about discussing and working on opening in terms of structures and talks about like how chess theory at that time in the early 80s was sort of developing. The book was reprinted and I think updated a little bit, but basically I'd like to see a 21st century edition of something like that in the chess literature, and I'm just kind of too lazy to do it myself. Although it's a project I have considered thinking about. So a6, and we're into the Sveshnikov here. Knight a3. Bishop takes f6 takes me back to my years as a 1200 and trying to study the periodic table that Adorjan created on the Sveshnikov or whatever, but it's difficult in a lot of theory, and it kind of always was too much for me to learn these super long tactical variations in the Sveshnikov. I'm going to play knight a3 here, which is a tad more positional than bishop takes f6, I think. So talking about bishop f4, there aren't like 3 moves that win after bishop f4. I don't think so, Sheppy. I don't think so. I mean, it seems like there's only one really good line for black to me, and I don't think there's 3 moves that win. I mean, e5 doesn't win. How many moves? Like, knight takes e4 is very complicated because knight takes e4, knight b5, and it's a little bit like reminds me a little bit of it reminds me a little bit of a line in the Benko called the Nescafé Frappe attack, or Frappe if you prefer. One of my favorite variations of the Benko with white, otherwise known as the Zaitsev variation. So against the Benko you play like pawn takes pawn, and then black plays a6, and you play knight c3, and after knight c3, there's positions that arise where white plays like knight c3 and knight takes b5 and bishop f4, and this is the same theme, but I just thought I'd bring it up as a kind of funny exercise. I kind of think that knight takes e4 is interesting, like knight b5, and now if d6, queen e2, and it seems like white's in the game there. So something like knight b5, after knight takes e4, knight b5, d6, queen e2, f5, f3, and it's unclear. Maybe g5 could be good for black. But I was thinking that maybe just like d6. After d6, knight takes c6, pawn takes c6, e5, and there, I guess, that variation needs to be looked at because there's a threat of queen a5 check in that position. But white has queen d2 there. So it's not that simple. I don't think there's 3 refutations. There's probably like one good answer, and that's why I think it's kind of a, it's probably... But knight takes e4, I thought. Queen a5 check. But queen a5 check, white could play bishop d2 in that position. Queen a5 check probably is a good move, but not like winning by force. Well, maybe. Maybe it is. Anyway. Queen a5 check, I give you credit, Chibi. I didn't think about that. But knight takes e4, knight b5, and then e5. It occurred to me late, you know, that this is probably the best. Does that make sense? Bishop f4. Knight takes e4, knight b5, and now e5. That probably refutes it. That would be, I think, the best. But queen a5 is interesting too. Just a funny position I was thinking about the other day, just randomly, you know, oh, it's a new move I can play on move 5. You got to be creative, you know. That's how you could stumble upon something original. It's, you know, it's possible that a move like bishop f4 would be playable if, you know, chess were a little more forgiving. Okay, so d6, knight takes c6, b takes c6, e5, knight d5, hits f4. Yeah, but you could play bishop g3 there. I mean, that's not so clear. All positions are like pretty good for black, but it's finding the best is the exercise. What's the concretely best? So anyway, good to see you, Sheppy, Crusader of Hope. Everybody's having fun with this mini problem. I think a good exercise for beginners. You guys, Sheppy particularly, kind of advanced. I wouldn't play bishop f4 against you and hope for you not to find a good refutation. Okay, so knight e7, the Leiko. What is this, some sort of Leiko variation? I think we played this with, maybe with Sorocha, actually. Okay, I confess I don't know a lot of theory here. Just don't know. I'm just going to play on instinct. This is one variation. Oh, he's giving me black plus 15 seconds. Oh, because of the... Okay. We got extra time from lichess. Okay, sorry, Lonely Master. I got a little distracted talking about this abstract opening problem I created in my free time. But I just thought it would be a good problem for beginners to exercise their analytical ability in an original opening position. Sheppy's a little too advanced. Queen takes d5. You know, we don't really want the pawn on d5 in this kind of structure, people, because that denies us the pressure on d6. So Lonely Master has the bishop pair, somewhat of a pawn weakness on d6, which is classic in the Sveshnikov, and a weakness on the d5 square. But this goes back to opening theory, the philosophy and stuff of opening theory. It's a modern opening. The Sveshnikov is a modern opening. It was condemned on general grounds 100 years ago because black has a weakness on d5 and the d6 pawn is backward. So it took a while for chess masters to realize that this opening is actually quite fine for black. If I play queen c6 check, is like my queen going to get trapped or something? Or is that actually playable? And what about queen c6 check? King moves, like, and rook d1. So king e7? Is that theory? Like queen c6 check and like rook d1? Can you trap my queen or something? I mean, it doesn't seem like you can trap my queen. Maybe I'm walking into like a known bad line here, but I just want to find out. Actually, king e7, I could always play knight b4, knight e3, and knight d5 check, I suppose. I'm wondering if this is a trap or if it's all established theory. So I am in danger of falling behind in development. Rook d1 is a move, but hangs the a2 pawn, probably not that important. Knight e3. a4 is a key pawn break. But again, my development is a problem. And my queen is close to getting trapped. So black should be fully equal here. Now, I have to be careful not to be worse, honestly. So I'm kind of panicking a little bit. Knight b4, maybe. Maybe knight b4. Better than knight e3 because it puts pressure on original squares. Knight e3 more of a standard move. I don't think that I have an advantage objectively here, and maybe Lonely Master just knows this line. I get caught sometimes when I'm playing e4 in pretty trivial positions that I don't know the theory, like this one. No, Saltigo, it's not really a chess problem. I mean, it's just a very bizarre idea I had in a trivial position. Trivial is the word of the day. Like e4, c5, knight f3, knight c6, d4, pawn takes pawn, knight f6, attacking the e pawn. It's a fundamental starting position in the Sicilian. And like, what would black's best be if you played bishop f4? Was this weird move I thought of. And just the problem is just to figure out what is the objectively best refutation of this weird move. But again, you know, it's kind of for an idea I created for asking more or less like beginners. I mean, it's not really meant for advanced players to like ponder over it for an extended period of time. So we don't have anything here, but theoretically neither side has absolute safety in this position. Queen c5. So what do we do? Well, it looks like a draw. It's gonna be hard for me. Maybe a4, but I'm behind in development here. Rook d1 to the open file, and it's absolutely nothing. I mean, I lose my ability to play a4. So I'm showing my true colors here, guys. I mean, really, that's a good move. Really, openings, you can see, not my specialty. I mean, 2 games in a row where I'm kind of outplayed theoretically in the first 20 moves. I don't really know what I'm doing. This is a very aggressive move now. Lonely Master, like, playing for a win. And I guess he's justified. And maybe this should be a problem for me. Shouldn't be a problem per se, but there's ambitious bishop d2 trying to win. Okay, I mean, I don't think I can really lose this if I play sensibly, but you could certainly lose it if you make some concrete mistake. So I want to be careful, but he's somewhat restricted. He's pinning himself. It's a little awkward, you know, to unravel or try to beat me here. So he's limited what he can do. Also has to be careful the pawns on the white squares. Objectively drawn, black has a tiny plus. Now I think that's interesting. This should be the problem, right? Crusader of Hope made a study. So what are we doing here? Think about a4 or something like that. Maybe that was a mistake by me. What else could I do? Like bishop f3. Black's slightly better here. So Lonely Master, we've got him in his it looks like he's comfortable with the very technical position. He's happy to play bishop d2. A lot of players would be kind of yawn and agree to a draw, but Lonely Master played bishop d2. He's very like happy to play for a win in a no risk situation, and that's interesting. So we learn a little bit about his style. Rook takes, rook d1, rook takes, bishop takes, and I don't know, maybe we have to give up a pawn here. To give up a pawn to create like a drawn position. I hope this is holdable for me. We're gonna lose a pawn concretely, but it looks pretty drawable, honestly. I mean, it's very locked. And he's gonna try something over there. Should activate my bad bishop, but it's hard to do so. The position may be so closed that even the extra pawn is too difficult to make progress with. I'm not really sure what I should do. But I don't have to do anything. I mean, I think that's... Oh, it just hung a pawn. That's probably losing. Okay. Well, that's a mistake. All right, we blundered that. Now we're probably lost. That's a good game. Lonely Master is happy here. But silly. Just blundered my f2 pawn, so... It's probably a draw if I don't drop that one. Now it's actually interesting, you know, like black has to demonstrate good technique to win this position. Not sure it's that easy for black to win. 2 pawns down. Anyway, we created an interesting exercise. Lonely Master seems very happy with this exciting position. Kind of feel like the extra 2 pawns should be kind of like 2 pawns should be enough for white to win. It's not that easy though. It's probably winning for black. Reminds me of a game I had with somebody else, but it's silly. To drop the f2 pawn is just absurd. I don't know what possessed me to play. I wanted to just play king g4 and stay active there, but this move. I think this is probably pretty close. A4 may have not been the most accurate. Now it's definitely a draw. I think black just kind of hallucinated. He doesn't want to draw. Now I have a passed pawn, sir. So do you, but you're not gonna win this game. I'm really curious to see your winning attempt here. Are you really serious, dude? It's kind of wasting our time. So I hope you don't like flag people on time in this kind of position. It's an unrated game. Anyway, Theoretical Battle, Geese, WTM Alexandra, Son of Anarchy, ARX, Kire Kospez, Cog de la, Andrea, Max123 Borkan. I don't think we're going to get to play all those games. I like how some guy said it was like 2 weaknesses, it's over. It was never that easy. I mean, but maybe Black was winning with perfect technique. So anyway, it was kind of silly game. I just should give up the first pawn and not drop the pawn on f2, and it's probably fairly routine drop. So Theoretical Battle, we played some Nimzos, some King's Indians. That game is not a game I'm really proud of. It was boring opening, and need to look at that line to find out what I'm supposed to play. Or else we just avoid the Sveshnikov and start playing the Rossalimo, because a lot of disrespect in the chat room from a guy. Your name is a guy. Just rude and disrespectful. And not the first time either. From our Egypt, whoever he is. Does anybody know? Is this a special person? Bishop e2. Is that R? Is that your first name? R or Egypt is your first name? I don't mean to hurt your feelings. So c6, capital R. It was like an ignorant comment, and then rude. Knight a6, and not the first time from that guy. Knight a6 is kind of unusual with c6. But it's playable. And sometimes we play knight c7, sometimes bishop g4. What's that? It's probably win for black. DST, what's up? It feels like it's probably a win. Check in the engine, it will say otherwise. Probably winning, but not easy. Not easy, and it's really ignorant to say it's like a trivial win. It's just really... Yeah, I mean, my opponent's like a 2300 player, and he didn't see how to win it, so it's obviously very easy, you know. Bishop g4. Panic says, I'm curious about knight a6. You thought the home for the knight was on d7. This is a modern way of playing the King's Indian. we're talking about chess theory, development of chess theory. This is one of those kind of things. At some point in the late 80s, like around 88, 89, they started to play knight a6 in the King's Indian. You'll probably find some games in the 80s, there's some obscure games, but it became popular maybe around the early 90s. When players realized that you don't have to put the knight on d7, that's a very old school kind of concept. It blocks the bishop on c8, and there are a lot of tactical means for defending the pawn when it goes to e5. Like in the exchange variation, gambits have been created with knight a6, for example. So theoretical battle, we don't know who this is. It's played us like 7, 8 games. But knight g5 is kind of an advanced theoretical move, I would say. I could play h6 here. I wonder if it would weaken my king side. How significantly would the weakness of my king side be if one were to play h6? Maybe e6. A weird idea. White's better. It's not really great the way I played knight a6 and c6, and white's trying to punish it here. If I play knight d7, then he can play f4. No, he can't play f4. Maybe knight d7 is an interesting move here. Trying to turn out the knight on g5, pressure the d4 pawn, not give him time to play f4. E takes f5 is only move. I'm talking about the end game in the last game. I'm kind of busy, but I don't know if we've come to a concrete conclusion. DIY surgeon. Do you have any ambitions to become a GM? I do. I do still. I haven't given up hope, but I got sidetracked for many years playing a lot of poker, and almost gave up. But recently this year, I've kind of come back and focused on chess for the first time, primarily since maybe 2010. So yeah, I do have, like, if you call them ambitions or hopes, maybe that's the same thing. I think it's still possible, though very difficult. If I had more money and time, I think I could do it for sure. But it's really a question of resources. The Grandmaster title isn't as hard as it used to be to achieve. It's much easier, in fact. But it's really a question of how many tournaments I can play in a given time and still earn a living. That's the really big question. Alright, let's go into the... We're playing a little passively today. I don't know what's up with that. But everyone's kind of unforgiving with me in the opening. We had very well played, opening in the Sveshnikov by black where I got nothing. We had an English defense where I forgot the theory and I was worse. And now we have a King's Indian where I played a kind of dubious variation with knight a6 and c6. So we're suffering for space. So the end game was far from easy. That much is sure. The opposite color bishop endgame. 2 weaknesses and it's over. Well, apparently not so easy, buddy. Knight c7 is there's an awful lot of opposite color bishop endings where you're 2 pawns down and drawing. So far from easy. But it sort of feels silly because I just dropped a pawn. Back in '92, I first learned of this man, through Chess Horizons magazine. Very talented player back then. Nice to see him playing again. Hexery, thank you. Chess Horizons was a New England. Still it exists, I guess. Though in later years, it isn't as good as it used to be. It was a New England chess magazine, published by the Massachusetts Chess Association. Over the years, it had been quite a good magazine. I think you could even argue it was better than like Chess Life in some periods. But yeah, good to see somebody who remembers me from the old days, because I don't see a lot of my old colleagues here when I'm doing online streaming. We're not getting a lot of players from the region where I used to live because of the time I'm streaming in the morning here. For one thing, if I play knight e6 and like bishop back to e3, I'd like to play c5. Can nearly equalize there, but not quite. I'm thinking perhaps rook e8 now. We're gonna have to get a little creative to. We're gonna have to get a little creative not to be worse here. I have played these kind of positions before on the stream. Basically, black traded a set of pieces and has less space, but it's hard for white to really do anything, in my opinion. I've played this kind of position on several occasions against strong players like Evgeny Glazirov, Varuzhin Akobian, and neither of those guys, who are relatively strong grandmasters, could beat me in analogous kind of positions. So it looks passive, but it's kind of hard for white to do anything, and that's kind of the basis of this. It's a defense, a defensive formation. Once I lost to Alex Wojtkiewicz with white in a similar line, but it was a bit different. I learned this from him, actually. This idea of playing like knight a6, knight c7, and knight e6 from Wojtkiewicz, who was very, very strong with white, but with black he played some kind of hokey variations. Was beatable. With black he would play some risky stuff sometimes. With white he was monstrous in the Catalan. Of course, everybody struggles a little more with black than they do with playing white. So we play queen b8, and my idea is fairly transparent, I think. Don't create any weaknesses, and it's hard to lose. I mean, that's the basic philosophy here. Extremely hyper modern to a kind of exaggerated level. What is white supposed to do? Any pawn move he makes kind of creates some weaknesses in his position. And he can sit there and make like nice moves like rook e1. What does it do? And one set of pieces being traded already makes it hard for him to kind of whip up a kingside attack. One of the things I was trying to prevent early on was, with the knight on g5, playing f4 by white, because if he had that additional f pawn on f4, then black would have a much more difficult time here, and white would have real kingside threats. Cocaine salesman, you're kind of spamming a little bit there. I guess it doesn't matter. Nobody else is talking at the moment. That's why it looks like he's spamming. We don't have a lot of chat today in the stream. If you guys want to ask me any questions or talk about any chess related subjects, let me know. Now, rook c1, interesting move. Theoretical battle here, adapting to the position. So b5, pawn takes pawn, knight takes b5, queen takes b5. Okay. And if you play b4 next, b4, pawn takes pawn, maybe just pawn takes pawn. Just take back with the pawn and then play like queen b7. This looks playable for me. I'd like to play knight takes pawn. Maybe I can. I mean, Pawn takes pawn, knight takes pawn, knight takes pawn, pawn takes pawn. And he's got control of the c-file. But it's not that clear. Trying to generate conversation. You're obviously succeeding because everybody won't shut up in the chat room. So rook d1, pawn takes pawn, queen b7. But I think queen b7 right away. And theoretical battle doing a good job doing nothing here, which I think is better than doing something destructive to his own position. Now if pawn takes pawn, we'll play knight takes pawn, I think. Because I don't really like pawn takes pawn, d5, where white's starting to play like d4 or d5 and knight d4 and knight c6. Black has to be conscious of that kind of thing. So the pawn on c6, I'll keep, there momentarily. And now I think that black is doing fine. We could play even a6. Pawn takes pawn looks fine. Actually, winning a pawn, no, he's taking on c6. Pawn takes pawn and like rook c8 here. Chipping away at his center. What about this? This x-ray any problem for me? I can play rook on a to c8 alternatively to be on the safe side. Theoretical battle. He's being sensible, not doing anything risky, just kind of maintaining his position. And it should be about equal. I just want to be able to meet knight g5 with rook f8 if necessary. Now b4 is kind of ambitious. Is b4 maybe too ambitious? Try to fix the pawns for on the right color here. Get maybe not though. Knight b5. He's down to 16 seconds. Seems like black should be fine though. Maybe I have to again do nothing myself. Both doing nothing extremely effectively here. And we finally have a tactical means of forcing an exchange of pieces. He missed knight a3. That was the idea. My nothing was better than your nothing in the end. Although it's admittedly not the most fun way of playing chess. Not the most exciting. Not the most exciting means of playing the game. What I've demonstrated here. Maybe c5. He's got knight d5 now. So I'm going to be aware of knight d5. With e6. It's attacking my pawn. Theoretical battles. A big fan of increment. He's stopping me from breaking free. Whoa. Maybe now. Wait with some concrete threats here. I have no reason to panic. Black should be fine. Yeah, I have theories about who Theoretical Battle is. It's probably a player who's played in my stream with a different account. I'm not sure, though. Bishop e3. Suddenly, White has good counterplay with the exchange down. We need to organize counter spiel. And now it looks like we're going to take it down. Very active play for black. Knight takes. And then, all right. Wow. Here. What's the best move? I have e4. Who does Theoretical Battle remind me of? You know, that's the question. Reminds me of some other player we've played on stream. Tremendously so. This love of the increment, Theoretical Battle. And refusal to give up. Very stubborn qualities. Good game. Geese. A Theoretical Battle hasn't tipped us any kind of information. Well, what are your interests outside of chess and poker? You seem like someone with a lot of hobbies. Interesting. I have a lot of minor interests, but when I grew up, I was, and still I'm a baseball fan. As far as sports go, baseball and American football. What else? Reading. I feel like this is a dating chat or something. My interests include travel, reading, mostly like horror, sci-fi type of stuff. Not heavy on the sci-fi. More like H.P. Lovecraft and things like Arthur Machen. Bishop g2. With hobbies, I'm not really that big a hobbyist. I play not so much video games nowadays. I played a lot of video games in my lifetime. Does this include like self-destructive things like drinking and smoking? Quit smoking many years ago. Travel is not really a hobby, just something I did for chess. Shah and Shah, yeah, that's what I was thinking, Saronche. He's disappeared strangely, and there's all these new players that I'm getting who are really anonymous, you know. I like that, actually, Cocaine Salesman was talking about community, trying to create community in the chat. We have a lot of players who are like not really in the community, just kind of coming every day and not really talking, not giving us any info. about who they are, or and Geese dropped a piece here. You got to be careful about this kind of thing. Somebody did this against me with white recently. Pawn fork, the double pawn fork. Also possible in the London system. But I think that's a byproduct of like too much like playing different stuff. If you play the same system enough, you won't fall for that kind of trap. I think the Geese tries to experiment a lot with different openings, and so sometimes succumbs to this sort of trap. DST says, "Who am I?" DST, you have a kind of identity. I mean, you're our resident bullet expert, and we know like where you're from approximately. You're involved in the chat, even if we don't know your full name and date of birth. We have an idea, something about you as a person, as a player, a part of our community. Whereas most people, here I'm trying to make 2 moves in a row, most people just kind of come lately, and they don't really become a part of the culture of the stream. And well, I think that's something that like maybe Chess Bra is good at, creating kind of culture of a sort, with the stream. So these like faceless, nameless people, like it's not as much fun. DST, you have a personality. Panic says, my name is Christian Francia. I'm a novice chess player, lives in Barcelona, play for the club. I don't know how to say it in the Scots Congress. That's awesome. Panic, actually, Christian, you reminded me of something that I wanted to say the other day, that it would be funny. People were saying, and I applaud you for like being a human being, and not hiding your identity. Okay, it's natural to be afraid on the internet. Like a lot of people have had their identity stolen, and it's not a joke. I had my credit card information stolen recently. So it's not something to be taken lightly. Like I can't castle here. Your identity and whatever, privacy is not something to joke about. But it's a chess site, and it's a chess stream. I can't like hide my identity, obviously, since I'm doing this. But what I wanted to joke about was, I've started the stream on Wednesdays where we have a theme. We're playing. This is probably Lost for Black with a bad structure. Anyway, I'm gonna try for the third time. We're playing unusual openings on Wednesdays, and Christian now reminded me, or I don't know how you pronounce Christian or Christian. He reminded me of a friend of mine from Spain named Christian, from Madrid. It's funny because Wednesday we do the blitz stream, and I was thinking, what other ideas could we have for like a theme, for another day, doing the stream, a different kind of theme. And like really, it's like as a joke, almost sort of half seriously, I thought about doing like a stream once a week where it was like what do you call it, like a self-help meeting, like Chess Anonymous. Hi, my name is Will, and I'm addicted to chess, and like everybody's like, hey, my name is Bob, and yeah, I've been playing chess for 30 years. So as a kind of parody, maybe not as a parody, it would be funny to have like a weekly chess stream. It's like a chess self-help group where we all just kind of like a club, that'll be the club day where we have, hi, my name is Joe, and I'm from Mexico, and I just played chess for 3 years, where nobody's anonymous, like anti-anonymous day or something like that. That's what I could do. Like the rule is like everybody can't be anonymous, just to combat the anonymity. How do you say anonymity? I can't say it. Jesus, it's like impossible. Anonymity. Please help me say anonymity. we can combat the chess anonymity by everybody, you know, pretending it's a self-help group. Chess Anonymous. Hi, my name is Sonic. I'm addicted to gambits. Exactly. You know, because I was like racking my brains for like ideas about, you know, thematic day, you know, kind of ideas for what we could do to make it a little more interesting sometimes. So that was, it's funny that Christian said that, because I thought that's actually kind of a funny idea with some valid possibilities. I was thinking like, my name is Jeroen. I'm from the Netherlands. My ELO is 1600. I really love chess, but I haven't played at a tournament in 17 years. No, I'm just kidding. I don't know how long Jeroen hasn't played, but this is just one of the silly things I thought about in the last week when I was racking my brains for ideas. Because it is the internet, and we have to be careful with our identities and identity theft and stuff like that. But at the same time, it's nice when, you know, we're real people, you know. And maybe because I'm old school, I don't know, but I just kind of, it's weird, you know, all these players we have who are just completely anonymous. It feels weird to me. I don't want to be anonymous. I usually operate with one chess account on a chess site, and just because I'm old school, I don't know. I have nothing to hide. The other thing is that maybe for the stronger players, it's about like hiding their games from search, you know. Oh, be careful here. I could lose a piece. Almost managed to do it. So it is a valid consideration. The players who are like tournament players, if they reveal their identity, if they're like 2200 or 2100 and better, they might feel like their play on the internet can be studied by their opponents. But I mean, really, if you're very strong, that might be the case, but I don't think it's that likely. Nice creative move there, Geese, to fix your pawn structure. Yeah. Anyway, I guess I'll have to trade. Fix his pawn structure, but he is a piece down. So it's kind of double-edged. Like, do you want to trade pieces? I guess. You are down a piece, but you're fixing your pawn structure. Yeah, there is this argument that the anonymity will protect the stronger players from having their opening studied. And I mean, I haven't been a chess professional, honestly, since maybe 2009, so, or felt like one at least. So I didn't care that much if my identity was open. But going to Zalakaros, playing in a tournament in June, I did start thinking, you know, that wow, I wonder if anybody would actually like look on online chess sites for my games when they were preparing. Would anybody go that far? I mean, I'm not that significant as a top GM or something, so lichess ratings are inflated. To get your real rating, just take your lichess rating and subtract 400 points. I mean, I don't really see that at my rating level. My rating is actually very close to my classical rating is actually very close to my actual rating. So I don't know, you know, maybe you're talking about some blitz and bullet ratings and stuff like that. I don't think that's true. But it's an internet chess site, so it's like not that easy to create a accurate rating system. Try the FIDE rapid system. There's a really, really accurate rating system. You show me an accurate and non-inflated rating system, you know, I'll give you like $5. Pretty much, you know, every rating system has some kind of inflation. So, but the 400 points, no. I mean, some people maybe at the lower end of the food chain, there's a little more inflation, but I don't think it's that easy. And plus, you've got people playing and cheating like with computers, which sort of, in a way, they actually control. They sort of control the ratings and prevent a little bit of inflation. I mean, they're clipping people here and there, trimming them down to size. But I think it's relatively close to sort of. ICC is close to FIDE, I feel. I think you're just a fan of ICC, if that's how you feel. ICC has hardly any players left on it, so there's not going to be anybody like there to rate pretty soon. King G2. Yeah, there's 3,000 ratings on ICC are very accurate. Pretty much like every grandmaster should be over 3,000. Like, what rating exactly is accurate on ICC? I'm not sure. But it's sort of weird to compare online sites ratings with over the board. It's like comparing Morphe to Magnus Carlsen. I mean, you're just talking about apples and oranges. It doesn't seem like it's something you can compare at all. Trying to say if online ratings are accurate compared to live tournaments, I mean, they're a completely different thing. So we can't really compare them. Though the system might be the same mathematical system. Chess.com. There's a lot of players on ICC. It's like 500 players or something. Do you work for ICC, cocaine salesman? Are you sure? You're not an ICC administrator or owner or something? Bishop E2. Maybe you should stick to ICC. They're really good people over there. Bishop E2, and we are fighting tooth and nail against Geese, who refuses to give up. But we're gonna trade down. We're only down like one pawn for the. I mean, down one pawn for the piece. It's like he traded queens. Why trade queens? Are you gonna get mated? Maybe so. Two connected passed pawns should seal the victory. I know plenty about ICC, cocaine salesman. I'm not a big fan anymore. But I do play there occasionally. Just seems like serious players. Well, it was popular with title players for a long time because they gave free accounts. And I mean, I played there since it was created before it was ICC, so I know a little bit about ICC. Besides working for them, I also played since it was the free internet chess server and ICC were together in one thing called the ICS many years ago. So it's changed a lot since those days. But chess, I think the future of chess is not with downloadable clients or whatever. I mean, people don't want that anymore. So lichess is much more modern, and every day I see more players on lichess. Yeah, there's not as many title players yet, but it's just a matter of time till everybody slowly realizes that the software here is much easier to use. It's more convenient. You don't have to download a site that puts programs and can scan your computer for information or something on your system. It's just a dinosaur, the Internet Chess Club. WGM Alexandra, 8+3. We've got this player, relatively new, has played very tough against me. 3 draws and a loss that was kind of a close one. JCS Mogwai says, I saw Bill's video lecture on Accelerated Dragon Roxy Bye and I thought it was really good. Though I played the Accelerated Dragon from the black side. You also have to pay for ICC. Well, I mean, that's the point, guys, that I'm kind of underlying without coming out and saying. I mean, the other thing is that the whole philosophy of ICC, that's why they've lost all their players, because there's still a bunch of 500 grandmasters running around with, you know, free accounts, but they've lost most of their paying members. I think because, yeah, I mean, why do you want to pay? I mean, most gaming sites are more going on free type of models where you're not buying a subscription, and I think that chess sites should and are moving that way too. So you need to generate money a different way, like through advertising. Now, lichess is exceptional because there's no advertising on the site. It's basically like a non-profit type of chess site. That's exceptional. I mean, there's not something you're going to see a lot of people doing what lichess, you know, where they're doing. They're creating this. It's more like a community, like a kind of a real club, if you will, it's a community more than a club. But you know, nobody's going to want to do something like lichess because it's not for profit. You know, you have to remember, lichess is not for profit. And sites like ICC and chess.com are totally for profit. So they benefit the owners of those sites and their wallets, number one priority. And it's not, you know, because they necessarily, you know, want to make a great chess site to help the chess community. Well, I mean, you know, I know the ICC, and ICC is about the owners making a profit more than anything else. It's and okay, that's capitalism. You know, they're free to do that, but I think that in the end, their business model is not going to keep working, and they need to adapt. And they've been slow to adapt. And if they don't hurry up and adapt, they're going to die. But it took me a while, honestly, to make the transition from playing on a server-based site to playing with the browser-based lichess. I don't really like chess.com. I'm not really friends with the club there, the clique of few players who kind of own chess.com and run chess.com. We have no common connections with them, and I don't really like the way it looks, you know, to be honest. And lichess is better, I think, as far as the programming of it. So it took me a while to get used to the browser type chess, though. That was the hard part. Getting used to playing on a browser-based site was very strange for me at first. Still, even now, like, I'll click on something random, like on the side of the board, and things will like flash a little bit, and it's distracting. So that part has to be kind of like cleaned up, but I got used to playing on lichess, and I'm happy with it. Yeah, there's not as many title players yet, but it's a matter of time. I mean, every time I log on and you look at community and you look at players, there's more title players than there were the last day, and it just takes time for it to grow. But it's just a matter of time. Well, I don't think Bong Bang Bing says I dislike chess.com and the way they set up their site up, like, compared to lichess. Well, I think chess.com came first, and like lichess came later, and they had nothing in common other than they're both browser-based chess sites. It looks to me like, you know, chess.com has a less attractive appearance. I don't like the philosophy that it's just for the profit of a few individuals. So lichess it appeals to my, I don't know, sense of chess as about chess. You know, it's not about making money for some private people, you know. That's what I like about it. It's just about the game, you know. It's about playing. We don't need to play on a site that is a private profit for somebody, you know. And if they do that, there better be something really special. And it doesn't seem like chess.com has anything really special, except for sponsoring a few events for Magnus Carlsen and Hikaru Nakamura to play blitz or something like that. I don't really see any reason to support them. All right, so again we have shades of my friend Attila Sebe here with the WGM Alexander playing the modern and the double fianchetto. This is I talked about an earlier game I lost to Attila Sebe, but here we have like a second one, and the story I told once before where we were playing in a rapid tournament and I was white, and Sebe like went out between rounds and didn't show up in this like 15-minute time control, and the clock was just running. It was an analog clock, I think, and it was running down to like 2 minutes. He came back to the board with like less than 2 minutes and beat me, and it was this kind of position. It was his favorite. He loves to play the modern, and with his double fianchetto set up, black is threatening b4, so I guess we can play e5. Although after e5, pawn takes pawn, knight takes pawn, black can combat the center with like knight d7, and I would think black would be... Black is pretty solid there. Maybe I'll play it. The alternative is like a3. That looks really lame. So I don't think this is a critical setup. What I did is very modest. Playing like bishop f1. I also do this against the hippo. It's just a kind of basic setup for white that's very safe without having to think too much. Now there's some chess bullies running around. Maybe 1 out of every 10 people online. Yeah, you can't. Well, yeah, you can't go down on the street and find like 10 out of 10 nice people. I guarantee it. Crusader of Hope says Tal Baron says plays here regularly, for example. So you see more GMs, exactly. Yeah, it's like a philosophy. Bishop f4 now, knight h5. I just don't want to pay some random private people to play chess, or I don't think anybody should have to do that. So I support lichess now. Knight on b to d7 is the right move, and bishop f4 I thought would have been good, but now I'm a little bit concerned about something. Knight h5 though, maybe not dangerous. Play bishop f4. Even a GM from Hungary, Oliver Mihalk, of course. Yeah, Oliver Mihalk have something in common. We both played Yevgeny Romanov in Zlatakarosh, and he told us both that we played for a draw. So no, I know Oliver. He's a nice guy. Yeah, he's a young GM, good technical player. He lived in Germany for a long time, actually, as a kid. Speaks fluent German. Bishop f4. Well, I mean, there's computers on every chess site. Chess cash tournaments. Okay, you're opening up this huge can of worms. No site is going to have cash tournaments that ever like really work. That's just the that's the curse of chess. I mean, we have a game that's been solved by computers or will be solved by computers slowly, and the problem is it's just not going to work. This idea of having tournaments for money, it's almost an insoluble problem. It would be nice, it would be great to move the chess world online completely, to have competitions online, but it's just a huge logistical problem. It's just maybe impossible to ever have it work. So unfortunately, I just don't think that's going to happen on any chess site in the foreseeable future on a serious level. Cheating is a problem on every chess site, and I found it on ICC. People were cheating against me in simul's. In free simul I was doing over there, and there were more people on ICC cheating than the players on lichess. Like, I'm not exaggerating. There were more of the players on ICC cheating against me. On doing 2 simuls, you would think that the pay site would have less people who'd they'd be more serious, like somebody said in the chat. You think they'd be more serious, having paid for their membership or whatever. But I found actually the opposite was true, that more people on ICC were cheating in the simul against me than on lichess. All right, so this is the idea. Knight takes d7. I'm going to play bishop e5 to counter the bishop on g7. And knight on h5 remains a little bit out of play here. So I think that WGM Alexandra playing well. And I don't know that I'm not in trouble. But if I can force black to play something like f6, I think I'll have reasonable chances, because black will have some weaknesses. Do you ever do simuls on lichess? Cocaine Salesman, man, if you need a job, dude, you should seriously contact ICC, because you're doing a great job promoting them. In my opinion, they don't have great computer detection. I can't even remember one time when they ever caught someone who was cheating against me, and there were numerous players who have cheated against me over the years. I can't even remember if they ever once labeled someone a cheater who cheated against me. The problem is it goes against their whole philosophy. They don't want to catch people for cheating because these people are paying them money, for their membership. If they punish them, they'll leave and they won't pay anymore. So on lichess, you have the problem that a lot of people cheat because it's free and who cares, But on ICC, the problem is they don't have they have a problem with this problem that they don't want to punish anybody because they'll lose paying members by punishing them. So I can't recall one maybe of dozens or tens of players who cheated against me. I reported many players for suspicious play, and never they were labeled as a cheater. WGM Alexander here with the monstrous bishops and huge compensation for this backwardness along the file. So I think I prefer black now. I feel like I lost a tempo or something. We're just desperately giving up the d4 pawn to try to get some pressure on the file. This is all we have. This very bad bishop on f1. ICC always claim they have great computer detection and all this. I never saw any evidence of that. Maybe in a few isolated situations where it was tournaments where there was money on the line. I remember some famous people like Garampan getting labeled as a cheater in a situation where they had to make the call because a lot of people were witnessing this grandmaster cheating in a tournament for prizes and stuff. But on the average everyday basic level, they may have had capability to detect people, but they wouldn't call them on it because nobody ever would get labeled as a computer. From the people that I suspected, it almost never happened. So it's a conflict of interests is the problem with a pay site like ICC. they maybe have the capability to detect people, but they don't want to because those people are paying, the money, and it's really a problem. Here we have Alexander with a very good position, better for black, and we're hanging on. These brutal bishops just raking the board. Hopefully I can just hang on by a thread here. I don't know what else to do. Maybe a4. I was going to say a4 to force black's hand a little bit. But tremendous play by black. It's like with Chess24. Peter Svidler once played a cheater on stream. The cheater was timely banned, but after some time users found the cheater was unbanned. I don't know too much about Chess24. I haven't really played there, but it's, I mean, if it's any kind of paying site, there's going to be this revolving issue, the conflict. On the one hand, the chess site has a responsibility to protect their paying members from cheaters. On the other hand, they don't want to punish the cheaters because they're paying members. So you have obviously a problem with what to do. Black with the brutal advantage here. I'm just trying to hang on against Alexandra. Not too worried about black taking on a4 because what is this now? Rook d8, just getting to the open file. We've unpinned ourselves. Maybe b3. Black playing pretty flawlessly in this game. I have to find something more incisive with white against the modern. And now what? Looks like we're struggling to hang on. Maybe bishop e2. Can I do this? Man, this is really to try to attack the pawn on c6. I feel like I'm close to lost here against this bishop pair. Just totally dominated. Just try to do nothing well. And maybe we can just kind of hang out and do nothing professionally. Talked about this earlier today. The art of doing nothing. c4 is probably not the greatest move. Put my pawns on dark squares. Now there's almost a threat. It's hard enough to play a strong player like this, but you guys can imagine. G4 is interesting, not possible though. Just protecting d3. Jeez. Alexandra, are you strong enough? While dropping a piece? What happened there? I think we got this. I have a new theory about who this could be. ARX 205. So ARX 205, who could Alexandra be? Another player that we played on stream before. I love the mystery. What a defense by me there, though. That was epic. Like, epic defense, right? I mean, black was so close to winning, it was just ridiculous. And we held on. I'm celebrating, like, what is his name? The pawn on g2 is hanging for like 10 moves, and no one cared. Well, Sheppy wasn't that exactly. I mean, if he did, or she, take on g2, it would have been, in some variations toward the end, would have given me time to round up the pawn on c4. And the other thing is that the pawn on g2, that's the point. Like, you take it whenever you want. So every time it was like black was doing something else. So it wasn't that obvious. Like, black didn't see it. They just thought they could take it any time and try to do other stuff that was more, you know, ambitious or whatever. So it's interesting, though. I think it was pretty brutal. I mean, for me to have to defend this position for such a long period with no time is not easy. But maybe, yes, again, like the ops color bishop endings where I'm down 2 pawns, it's lost theoretically if black, you know, plays perfectly, but it's not that easy. So it was challenging. But the other thing is, like, at the end, they don't hang a piece there with, of course, you know, f takes g. The thing is, if they took on g2, I'm fixing my pawns on dark squares with g5 check. And now in that ending, when I'm down a pawn, I'm saving my bishop on b1. The pawn on c4 is fixed and weak on c4. I'm not sure that black is winning, because all of black's pawns are going to be fixed on white squares, and we're going to have some checks against the king. So even at the final moment, if black doesn't hang a piece there, I think there's some tactical problems for black winning that position. DST says, when are you going to play against Stockfish level 8 in standard time controls and give commentary? They should take on g2 before g4, probably winning. Well, I mean, yeah, I mean, maybe there's other ways too. Everything that they did seemed reasonable. But I do get some time to go after the c pawn if black plays a bishop takes g2. But I guess we'll have to analyze it with the computer later on. Our favorite chess entity, the chess computer. Yeah, DST asked me, when am I going to play Stockfish? Stockfish, man, it's like, I really honestly stopped wanting to play any computers about 15 years ago. There are a lot of guys who play, like title players, who play chess engines regularly. But for me, it's very frustrating. it used to be fun when you had a chance, but it seems like now there's like no chance. Although I don't know, Stockfish 8. What is it you said, Stockfish 8? I'll have to try it and get back to you. I haven't tried playing against it, but I'm not sure I want to do that to myself. You have to ask a different chess streamer because it's like really kind of painful playing the computer. Son of Our Anarchy is back. So WGM, quote unquote WGM Alexandra, is not clear who this is, this account. It's master strength, but very uninterested in talking, doesn't want any kind of conversation with the other players in the stream. Says to me just very briefly, good game or something like that. So I kind of think it's probably like a tribute account. Somebody with a crush on WGM Alexandra, whoever that is. I'm going to go with knight a5 because Arcs played bishop b3 here. I mean, I play this similar setup with white, but we would normally prefer to put the bishop on a2. That's the point of a3. Really, one of the main factors, in playing a3 is to give your bishop that retreat back to a2. So now white more or less has to give up the bishop or waste another tempo. And black can force increased control over c4. I can support the knight maybe on c4 in some lines. The temptation is to just take the bishop on b3 here, which is fine. It may be best. Knight takes b3. I don't even know which way white's going to recapture with the knight. With the pawn is also interesting to try to use the c file against black. Kind of a typical idea in this Scheveningen type of structure. Speaking of Scheveningen, where's our friend Scheveningen? Would be funny if WGM is your nemesis Sophia Rogers. So Saronche, you're kind of on the right track there. Very similar kind of level of player, master-ish level, fast kind of, human because it can play. Well, he did blunder a piece at the end there, but most likely human-ish. Also, this female name, although generally this new account, WGM Alexandra, has played well in the opening. There was one game among the 6 or so that I've played where it played poorly as black. Still, I gave it a draw because I was kind of unsure what I was up against, but it's played the openings pretty well, which was the big thing about that account that you mentioned, that it was suspiciously like using opening book for helping its play. And some people, maybe they play correspondence and they think that using an opening book is okay, but that's cheating too. It's not just about like using an engine for direct moves. I mean, using the lichess or any kind of opening base while you play is just as much cheating as using an engine to make your moves. Yeah, a lot of anonymous accounts. Anyway, it makes it funny kind of to investigate who these people are. To imagine, should I say, not investigate, but to kind of wonder, who am I playing against? Adds a little level of excitement, but sometimes can be frustrating. Yeah, I didn't appreciate like that guy who said, "Oh, I beat you with like 3 different accounts." I mentioned this already. That's not really cool to say to a guy who's playing, openly with an open identity like myself. Hey, yeah, I beat you with the 3 different accounts on lichess. Well, okay. It's kind of like, were you playing as yourself, or were you cheating against me with 3 different accounts? F3, and this is an idea to play like queen f2 and put pressure on b6. I'd like to play like rook c8 and think about exchange sacrifices on c3, but we're not going to be able to do that at the moment. Knight d7. So white has the position that I've talked about on the stream quite a bit, guys. This sort of open Sicilian where white plays f3 and castles kingside. And what I like to say is that it's kind of difficult for white to find a forward plan. No pawn breaks for white, so they have to rely on piece pressure like on d6. And objectively, maybe it's time to just break out here. The thematic, I almost didn't do it because I kind of wanted more, but if I think about this objectively, maybe I need to play d5 here, because if I don't, I could be just kind of slightly worse. So I'm gonna do it. This is my first instinct. Then I said no, don't do it, because you're going to play for a win, keep the tension, keep the pieces on the board. But I'm afraid that if I don't play d5, then I may just be slightly worse. So I'm going to go ahead and do this. But if you play the Najdorf with black, for example, which a lot of you guys probably do, as it is the most popular line of the Sicilian, both at master level and below, if you play the Najdorf a lot, I mean, this d5 break is your bread and butter to equalize, but a lot of times the problem is that it equalizes too much. It basically takes the life out of the position and simplifies to the point where even a beginner could draw a strong player. So you have to be careful sometimes when you're playing the Najdorf or positions like that, where you play d5, but maybe you hurt yourself on a practical level because it's just too easy for white to draw the resulting position. That's the thing you've got to be thoughtful about in a situation like this. So sorry, that's the browser chess site dilemma, clicking on something randomly. But anyway, Arcs 205, we played one other game with them. This was recently, so I don't know. 2400, my rating was different then. Must have been a little while ago when we played Arcs. Rook on a to c1. I'm thinking about this. Bishop c4 obviously is a possibility. Not really where I want to put my bishop, maybe. And this constant threat of queen f2, keep in mind. I beat my chess trainer app once or twice when it said at 29-25. I think the ratings might be inflated on the chess player app. Who was that? Cocaine salesman? Who was it that said the ratings were inflated? Those ratings are definitely inflated. Rook on a to c1. Alright, let's just make a logical move here. Bishop c4 and rook b8. Maybe just b5. Just play b5. Keep it simple. Yeah, I guess this is pretty much logical. I don't want to wait to play c4. Black slightly better. I have minority attack on the queen side, safe king, and I can maybe kind of loosen up white's king side with something like bishop d6. So black's to be much preferred here, but still may not be that easy to win. Why don't you see too many people play the pin variation, the Sicilian? It's just not that good. It's not really good. I think there are several ways for white to get an edge in that variation. So that's why. Occasionally you see it brought back into popularity for a brief period. There was a New in Chess yearbook at some point. I remember it being discussed in there quite a while back, but I think it's a terrific line against low-rated players. But at the master level, it's considered to be kind of incorrect. Wow, bishop c4. Looks like white is Self-immolation. Not what we wanted to see. King h1 also had some issues, so well, white just shouldn't have played bishop c5. I mean, you have to play, I guess, bishop d6, g3, simply g3, and allow your position to be slightly weakened. Now it's queen. Loss of queen with bishop g3. So that's decisive. Slice and dice. Those guys, those bishops, too dangerous. What did white do wrong? Well, we did d5, and then immediately white got in trouble. But what do you want white to do? Maybe instead of rook c1, I would have played the queen f2 right away, threatening b6 concretely and not giving me time to organize my position. And so you play queen f2 right away. If I play b5, maybe you have bishop c5 trading the bishop on c5. You can induce me to play b5. Now, he's not resigning. Then again, neither am I. I'm going to have to give up the exchange no matter what here. It's okay. Sort of waste of time to even play queen b6, I guess. But you can always hope. Wow. Right there, we have rook d8. Is this even a good move for me? Not necessarily the best. It's good enough, though. We are up a lot of material here. So I think white had the chance to play queen f2 and bishop b6 and bishop c5, and that's a golden idea. When you're facing the bishop pair in an open position like the open Sicilian, trade the bishop off. If you can reach knight versus bishop, it'll be much easier to defend than like knight and bishop versus two bishops. That's a good practical piece of advice. Pin variation has some interesting tricks. You got the idea of playing from a video lecture Yasser Seirawan did. Well, Yasser is not one to recommend total garbage normally. The pin variation is playable. It's probably a little bit underestimated. You could probably get away with using it up to a certain level. But I think it's always kind of been under a cloud theoretically, and I don't think it's ever been fully revitalized theoretically. C4. So Kyrgios, we played a number of games. They always like to play d4. Last time we lost was a few games ago. What are we doing? So e6. I played some King's Indians. Kyrgios can play pretty well in closed King's Indian classical type positions. I can't recall the Nimzos too much. I'm going to try to play more mainline. I've been playing a lot of knight c6. Now a3, this is not the most common. I mean, white usually takes on c5. And I think Kyrgios has actually played another line. Like, I think they played e3 against me before, if I'm not mistaken. So here we take, and I think that black equalizes here, but it's not. Ooh, pawn takes. Okay, normally most common would be like queen takes, pawn takes, d4, queen takes, d4, knight c6, and I would say black gets about equality. But maybe we had a game before with pawn takes pawn. Before I get back to the game, guys, we have like 20 minutes left in the stream, so I'm gonna play this game and definitely one more. Sorry for anybody who doesn't get a game in that challenged me. We can't accommodate everybody every week. Please come back on Sunday, play my simul at 6 o'clock p.m. Central European time. Hey guys, are we still in Central European summertime? Yeah, I guess we're going to be. You know, yesterday was the first day of fall. But the time zones are not so clean cut. B takes c6 here. White wants to play e4. Maybe Capablanca did this. I'm not sure. So knight c6. We definitely had at least one game on the stream in this variation. I think I played knight c6, and later on, that looks like a normal move. We're holding up the e4 advance by putting pressure on d4. White has a kind of same-ish variation with the queen on c2, basically, which shouldn't be really dangerous. It's not usually a great square for the queen in that type of variation. So I did this Hübner. This pawn structure we're going to call the Hübner type of pawn structure because of the famous German grandmaster Robert Hübner. This is not the Hübner variation, but that is the pawn structure from the Hübner variation. We don't mind getting a bishop trade on f6. Obviously, with this structure, we're going to put primarily pawns on dark squares. He gets the bishop outside the pawn structure here. We could try to play like g5. It's very radical, but usual in closed Nimzos. It's much like a Leningrad variation with bishop g5. Change challenge. Yeah, we've got this game, one more game. Cog de la challenged me to 5-5. That might be the last game. Unless this is real short. What do I want to do? I mean, the pin has to be resolved at some point, but I don't have to do it right away. If I castle, though, that really changes the scenario. G5, knight h5 is a possibility. I think that black has a durable position here. We have other interesting tries. I could even let him take on f6, and I think black would be fully okay. Possibly even queen a5. Actually, pawn takes pawn, pawn takes pawn, queen a5 check, knight e4, that's kind of cool. It would undouble his pawns there. The only problem is undoubling the pawns. Don't really want to undouble those pawns. Alright guys, I'm just kind of stalling here because it's difficult to make a decision about which way to play this position. Queen e7 is a solid move. This pawn takes pawn thing maybe not so great because it undoubles the pawn, and also knight d2 could be an inner position, so I'm going to give up on that line. Queen a5 right away would be more interesting. Alright, let's just play a solid move. Queen e7, kind of like a Leningrad. We're trying to play e5. You could play e5 right away. I could have played e5 right away. That can lead to an interesting pawn structure. Botvinnik often would play these structures with like pawn takes pawn, and white has great control over the d5 square. It looks like a bad structure for white, but sometimes that can be positionally difficult for black. If I play e5 and there's an exchange, looks like a beautiful pawn structure, but white has great chances of using the d5 square. Maybe his pieces aren't in the right place for that, though, in this particular position. Queen e7. DST is counting the viewers. I need to get like I know I need to get like program to count the viewers and update the donations from all of our various donators, but what's it called? Twitch updates or whatever. Haven't gotten around to that. D5. Interesting. So we don't necessarily want to take because it undoubles the pawns, though I don't think it's bad. Pawn takes pawn, pawn takes pawn, knight e5. White's behind in development here, so you could argue black's absolutely okay in this position with simply pawn takes pawn, knight e5. But can I do something better? I don't know. Knight d8 is so passive. Knight a5 loses a piece. Knight e5, not really appealing to me. So I'll do it. I'll double the pawns. g5 doesn't look like a possibility here, really. White is really far behind in development for this bishop pair, basically. Wow, bishop takes f6. That's kind of a concession. So I think Kyrgios losing the thread a little bit. Unfortunately, I'd like to play bishop f5, but it has a number of holes. Well, at least one. Anyway, e4. e4. I can't play bishop takes e4. I'll lose my piece with check. Knight e5 attacks the pawn on d5, but e4 looks like a reasonable move there. So I guess we play knight e5. A lot of simplification, but white's behind in development. The pawn on d5 is weak. Pawn on c3 a little bit vulnerable. It feels like we just got the development advantage. And our pawn structure is more compact than white. Possibly I had better. But when you're black, you have to take what you can get. Other moves look passive for me. Knight e7, e4. Knight d8 is obviously a bad square. Knight a5 again loses a piece. Does it lose a piece? Though you could play. You could calculate a little further. Yeah, knight a5. It does lose a piece, right? That's weird. Knight a5, queen a4 check. King d8. No, king f8. Queen takes a4. Wow, what a weird variation. Check that out. If I played... Okay, no time to think. I wanted to say knight a5, queen a4 check. Oh, just bishop d7 there. No, that allows queen e4 check at the end. So knight a5, queen a4 check, king f8, queen takes a5, b6, and I'm going to take on c3 with check and take the rook on a1. And maybe that just wins for black. It's kind of funny. Alright. Develop with tempo when you can. I wanted to give a big speech about that other variation, but we're down to 45 seconds. We have 5-second increments, though, which is enough to play with. Black is much better. Perhaps white is, capable of holding this position if they don't do anything drastically wrong. Still, not really easy for white. Guys, we're going to play one more game today. DST likes keeping track of the viewers. You called the stream a simul. I talked about the simul. It was a Freudian reaction. Talked about the simul on Sunday at 6 p.m. 6 p.m. Eastern Central European time. I'll come up with something new every day how to describe my time zone. Budapest time, 6 p.m. on Sunday. I resolve. I'm tired too. I want to reserve the right to change that time, though. Sometimes I might have to move it up or down an hour or so, or less. Running out of time, kids. I want to get my bishop to a place where it can do some damage on both sides of the board. I almost played bishop e4, but that's a really, really good way to trap your own bishop. To play bishop e4 and f5 is absolutely brilliant. Let's try this. Trying to get something going on the queen side. I could play f5. But I'm kind of hoping to play on both sides of the board and use the pawn structure as my means to win the game. You know, this is a weakness. If you know, if the tree falls in the forest and it doesn't make a sound or whatever, is this really a weakness here on d6? That's the question you have to ask yourselves. And do I want to move my rook again? I don't know. Let's just do something. Maybe a mistake. Maybe a6 is better. White could get some play. Reminds me a little bit of a queen's gambit. Except my pawn is... Why would it remind me of a queen's gambit? You guys might be asking yourselves. Good question. Totally reasonable question. I don't want to tell you because it might give white some ideas. But I think that white has got enough here that they should be able to hold on with really good play. I wouldn't want to be like white against Magnus Carlsen in any position, but this one looks like one of those he might enjoy with black. A5? Can I play A5? And just focus on this queenside majority? White's kingside majority is one that's difficult to use. That's maybe what I'm talking about. In many Queen's Gambit type situations, this ability, like play f4, to mobilize the kingside majority, much more difficult. And also the Queen's Gambit accepted, another opening where it happens a lot, that black has this qualitative advantage on the queen side and white has this majority on the king side that's hard to use, or in the center, harder to use. Got to keep that pawn protected. White doesn't really have any tricks with a4. c4, of course, I just pushed past. And ultimately we have, you know, our passed pawn on the queen side type position. Maybe this is the second weakness that could really cost white. But how do I make progress now? We may be at a kind of position where I can't make progress very easily. There are three weaknesses. Three little piggies. F4, that was a move that I was expecting a little earlier. And is queen e4 a sensible thing to do? Maybe just e7. I didn't like queen e4, bishop d3, queen a4, bishop c2, where I'm basically hoping that I don't lose. F5. Do I want to do F5? Not that I really want to do it. Alright. Here we go. What is up here? Kerry Kozpa is doing a good job holding on. And finally missing something. I've got to be careful now. Can I take now? You found that. A friend used to say, Master had that move. Wow. What a nasty sort of defense. Master had that move as well. Kyrgios has kind of been practicing their blitz game, I think. Feels like you're faster than you were before. So you've improved a little bit, I think, since the springtime. In terms of finding good moves very quickly, don't remember you being so fast, but making this a really long game. Alright, tough fight. Last game, guys, we're going to play Cagdila 5-5. Cagdila, I'm glad it's a blitz game. So, we'll mix it up a little bit with knight f3 here. Whoever created increment is the biggest troll in the history of humans. Good question. I wasn't a fan of it, but I am a fan of it for the sake of the stream. I also, as John Fedorovich said, you know, I just want to be able to win on time. And John makes a lot of simple statements that make sense, you know. Fedorovich said that he loved the old BHB clocks. You old school guys might remember those. These like little orange plastic clocks that had little narrow buttons you had to push down. They're the best, you know, for maybe 95 here. Best for cheating, like in the park or something like that. You get the rigged clock phenomenon. Wonder about like d4. That's a crazy idea. Knight takes d4. Pawn takes pawn. Pawn takes pawn. Crazy idea. I'll look at that later. What am I supposed to do here? This is like a blitz game. Cagdila says he's 1600, 1700. Pawn takes pawn, knight takes, and I think I'm having a hard time there, but maybe this. What? Wow, insta move, but I don't think that's best, is it? Bishop g5 is interesting. Cagdila playing a little bit fast. Pawn takes c5. I guess pawn takes c5, and then what, d4? What are you going to do? d4? What's up with that position? Pawn takes c5 and like d4? Probably not that great for black. Of course, black has a lot of moves, just taking back. Now bishop g5 is interesting. So it's kind of like a Grunfeld type position. Thinking about bishop g5 here and playing just for control of the center. Cagdila is a quick mover. Quite the quick, fast player. Bishop takes f6, bishop takes f6, bishop takes d5. Looks like a good line. After knight takes d5, I would think black has good chances to draw. But after bishop takes d5, things are not as simple. We can play maybe like some kind of this was a little bit hurried. And we're winning a pawn here, at least. So, I mean, it's obviously not really correct by Cagdila to drop a pawn there. Do we want to trade queens or not? How about like queen a4? Maybe this in-between move. Queen a4. And then queen e4 check in some lines. It'd be funny if we made a mistake by playing queen a4. Queen b6. And now queen e4 check. Well, queen e4 check, rook e6, queen a8 check, queen d8. And it looks like we kind of screwed up there. So I guess I have to take back and just play this ending a pawn up. It's a tough life, but that's what I have to do. Pawn up with better development to boot, so it should be good. But Cogdala, your time management is really extreme. I don't think Cogdala's used to the increment. We've got to be a little bit careful here about my king not getting mated. But it's still, he's tied down to the rook on c6. He can't go, you know, queen c8, queen h3 and try to mate me. Now we are making some progress, I think. Queen a3. You know, if I need to, I'll even trade some more pieces. The 5-second increment. This is the last game for today, guys. 5-second increment is really... DST was complaining about it, ironically. Yeah, he would be in hell here. Let's trade this. No matter what I do, if I play queen e7, there's rook e6 just in my face, which is very, very annoying. Rook d4. Possibly queen c1 here, trying to reroute over to this side of the board. But Cogdala, I mean, you're like 1600, but you're playing tough and very, very fast. Gets pretty impressive. If you actually took your time, what would you be capable of? Would kind of be my takeaway from that. That's what I'm trying to ask here. Like, how good would you be if you actually took your time? But a blunder. Queen d4 check. Just isn't enough televised chess. David Letterman. We got made into. Always check. Like be mate. But Cogdala, if you took your time, think about it. I mean, how good could you be? If you can make me work that hard for a pawn and still not necessarily be winning if black played perfectly there, if you actually took your time, how strong could you be? I don't know, man. But think about it. Welcome everybody, and we'll see you tomorrow. No, not tomorrow. Sunday for stuttering here. See you tomorrow in another dimension. But Sunday, 6 p.m. Central European summertime. I'm a little bit out of it. Waking up early this week every day. Done something strange to me. What is this? So, I mean. What is this question? Talking about crazy people like Rapport and Gareev. Rapport, not your average team member for the for the team Olympiad. Yeah, wild players. Yeah, Nakamura, what's up with his opening repertoire? Like, is he trying to make a point? Why does he play such conservative openings? The Queen's Gambit declined all the time with black. I thought at first it was just a statement, but it's like he's doing it constantly. Not really taking advantage of his skills, like it seems like, to the utmost by playing such tame openings. Anyway, that's another story, another discussion for a different day. We'll be back on Sunday with a Simo, 6 p.m. Central European Summertime. We'll be back on Monday through Friday next week with more Blitz and Classical Chess. Wednesday is Unusual Openings Day on my stream, 10 a.m. every Wednesday. So thanks for joining me, guys. Saronche will be back Sunday. I don't know if you'll be able to make it for that, but we will be here. So thanks, Saronche. Thanks, everybody, for joining me. And we'll be for Simul here for Sunday and Monday through Friday next week. More Blitz and Classical Chess on lichess. Hope you enjoyed it. And thanks for watching. Bye-bye.